Hello everyone, it's Miss Childs here from Quarry Hill Academy. I noticed something that we do a lot in Year 6 and sometimes in Year 5 is we do setting descriptions, character descriptions and stories. And sometimes it can be hard to tell the difference between all three of them. So today I'm going to give you an example, a very short example of each one, so you can compare them and learn the differences between them. So let's start with a setting description, which I know that Year 6 has been asked to do. For my examples, I will be basing everything on the movie Lilo and Stitch, which is one of my favourite Disney movies. We will be starting with a setting description. Now, a setting description only describes the setting, which is another name for the environment, or where the story is set. But nothing happens in this. We only learn about the environment that we are in. Now, in order to do this well, we need to use all of our 5 senses. So the setting of Lilo and Stitch is in Hawaii, which is a sort of beach location for the majority of the movie. So I'm going to set this on one of the Hawaiian beaches. So I'm going to start with maybe something I can see. So, I have the coarse sand. I've decided I'm starting with the sand and I've given it an adjective to kind of describe how it feels. Now I've got to think about, is that right? I think actually I would rather use some alliteration and make it sound a bit nicer. The soft sand I've gone with now. The soft sand sparkled under the warm glow of the orange sunset. Okay, that's my opening sentence. Can I make it better? Let's get rid of the. Let's just get rid of the and start at soft sand sparkled under the warm glow of an orange sunset, marking the end of another scorching day. So I've set the scene. I've said where we are and how it feels. Now I can go into more information about the actual environment. I'm going to talk about how it sounds. Do you see how I deleted soft? I was going to use soft again, but I've already used it, so I can't use it again. Okay, so now I've added some personification. So I've got lots of adjectives here. I've got deep blue ocean waves. I've got a bit of an onomatopoeia with crashed. So the deep blue ocean waves crashed with a gentle rhythm that sang the last lullaby of summer. So we've got this. I'm trying to describe how it feels by using personification, because of course the sea can't sing, but you can imagine what it feels like. Tiny birds covered in their glamorous gowns of red, orange and yellow harmonised with the sea's beautiful song. So again, I'm using lots of adjectives. I've used a bit of alliteration with glamorous gowns. I've described the colours of them with red, orange and yellow, and obviously I've used a bit of a metaphor. They're not actually wearing gowns like a human would. That's a descriptor of their plumage, their feathers, to make it sound more exciting. I'm going to change everything to present tense. Soft sand sparkles under the warm glow of an orange sunset, marking the end of another scorching day. Deep blue ocean waves crash with a gentle rhythm that sings the last lullaby of summer. Tiny birds, covered in their glamorous gowns of red, orange and yellow, harmonise with the sea's beautiful song. Salt hangs in... I'm going to combine these two sentences. Whilst salt hangs in the air and the taste of seaweed permeates every Every living being's lungs. So what have I missed? Probably feel. We've got a little bit of hear, see, taste, smell. So let's do something that we can feel. Okay, let's use a different sentence starter than what we've already used. So I want to use a sentence starter that kind of describes something happening in this moment. Okay, so now I'm going to read it out. Soft sand sparkles under the warm glow of an orange sunset, marking the end of another scorching day. Deep blue ocean waves crash with a gentle rhythm that sings the last lullaby of summer. Tiny birds covered in their glamorous gowns of red, orange and yellow harmonise with the sea's beautiful song, whilst, let's use a comma there, whilst salt hangs in the air and the taste of seaweed permeates every living being's lungs. Flapping their wings, the birds of paradise frame the cloudless azure sky before dancing amongst the tall, swaying palm trees. So let's look at a few of the techniques that I've used here. I've used alliteration with soft sand sparkles and glamorous gowns. I've used a lot of adjectives. Rather than just saying the light of a sunset, I've used the warm, so we've got feeling, warm, glow describes how it looks, and orange gives it a colour. Marking the end of another scorching day sets the time of day. So we have said sunset, we know it's the end of the day, but it kind of adds a bit more information. Deep blue ocean waves, I could have just said waves, but I've up-leveled it. Crash with a gentle rhythm that sings the last lullaby. So do you see all the way through that crash, rhythm, sing, lullaby? I've used lots of words that describe the sound. I don't have to just say waves sounded like they were crashing. I can make that sound a lot better by using a range of words, and I really recommend just pulling up a thesaurus to go along with you and help you. Tiny birds, they're not just birds, they're tiny little birds, covered, so absolutely covered in their glamorous gowns of red, orange and yellow. Harmonise, again another song-based sound, because I want to really create that atmosphere with the sea's beautiful song, whilst salt hangs in the air, so that gives us a bit of the smell, and the taste of seaweed permeates the lungs, so every living being's lungs. So we've got smell and taste put together there, and you don't have to combine them, you can use them in different ways. I could have given them their own entire paragraphs if I wanted to. Flapping their wings, so I've started with an ing word, or you could also have an ly word to start with, something that's a bit different than what we've used before. The birds of paradise frame the cloudless azure sky before dancing amongst the tall, swaying palm trees. Now we could probably come up with a better word for tall, and I'm sure there's a lot here that you think, oh, I could do better than that, or I could add to that. So this is only the beginning. This is the first part of my paragraph of my setting description. I could go on to describe all manner of things. Maybe there's a boat in the water that I could describe. Maybe there are sun loungers on the beach that are catching the sun. Maybe there are the smells of a restaurant nearby. Start imagining all these different things, and if you can't think of it in your head, look up images of the kind of place you're trying to describe and see what can help you. Now, in this setting description, nothing happened. There was no plot that happened, no characters went and did anything. The closest to that was just the birds in the sky, but they're not really doing anything, they're just flapping their wings, nothing else. All we have described is the environment using our five senses. And then we've made it sound even better by using our metaphors and our sentence starters and any other different techniques that you have. A character description is very similar, but instead of describing an environment, we are describing a single character, okay? So now let's try and do this with Stitch, which if you haven't seen the movie is this creature here. So I've gone ahead and written through this. I'm going to talk you through what I've done. So I started with his name, you don't have to do that, but I just thought it would be useful if I started with his name. You can start yours however you want. Stitch. So I've immediately said who he is. He has a name. He matters. Stitch. A blue pug-like alien with giant rabbit-shaped ears. Okay, so that's a very, very descriptive moment. We know he's blue. We know he kind of looks like a pug, so we've got a little bit of a simile there. And we know he's an alien. We know he's not from this world, and we know he has giant rabbit-shaped ears. So as fast as you can, describe the most noticeable features of your character. Stares into the sunlight with round bug eyes. Now, staring into the sunlight kind of adds a little bit of plot in there. We want to try and avoid that as much as possible, but I felt like it was a pretty good way of describing his eyes to kind of use that. I could go back and edit and remove that if I wanted, because remember, in a character description nothing happens, we're just describing the character. His small frame, so I've described he's small, covered in fur, apart from the small hooked claws on his stubby hands and feet. He doesn't just have a furry body and hands and feet. He has a small frame. He is covered in fur. He has small hooked claws, and he has stubby hands and feet. Do you see how adding the adjectives helps? And here I've noticed I've used small twice, so can we think of another word for that? And his minuscule, make them sound even smaller. His small frame covered in fur, apart from the minuscule hooked claws on his stubby hands and feet. The creatures, so I'm using another word, creature, to match alien, okay? I don't want him to sound like the dog. I don't want him to sound like something earthly. I want him to sound alien. The creature's long, slimy tongue hangs from his grinning mouth as he waits, ready to start his next adventure. So I've added a little bit of his personality in here as well. I'm not just describing what he looks on the outside. I'm describing a little bit of his intentions. He has a grinning mouth. He's excited. He's interested in adventure. Small tendrils flick from his back and head, revealing the silhouette of an insect, as a shiver runs down his spine, standing his fur on end. I brought back the fur again, but this time I've contrasted it with the idea of an insect, which obviously doesn't normally have fur, just describing how alien he is. Instead of just things came out of his back, I've used tendrils. I've tried to find a word that matches the description of them, how they look, how they might feel. I've said where they come from, and I've used the word silhouette rather than just it made him look like that. His voice is raspy and broken, as if trying to speak in a language not his own. And the stench from whatever unearthly pod he arose from lingers on his breath. So here I've got sound and I've got smells as well. So do you see how I'm using the same ideas as the setting description, but this time I'm only describing a character? So what do we do when we're looking at a story? What's the difference between these two and a story? Firstly, these two, the setting description and the character description, are describing a moment in time that is happening now, but that is not moving forward. They're all set in present tense, but they're not going to make something happen. Nothing can happen in a character description. I'm only describing what a character looks like and feels like. Nothing happens in a setting description. I only describe what an environment looks like and feels like. In a story, we have plot, we have progression. Things happen in a story. So we can use what we've already written and then give an actual story, a beginning, a middle, and an end that can happen. So now I'm going to talk about Stitch, using his descriptors I've come up with, exploring the beach that I described. But this time they are in the same world and something can happen. So let's use some of what we've already got. So Stitch, a blue pug-like alien with giant rabbit shaped ears, listened to the deep ocean waves crashing against the soft, sparkling sand. So now I've put the character in the environment. Now something's happening. I've taken a piece of what I had in each of them. I've got the scorching from the setting description, and I've got the long slimy tongue from the character description, but now I've given it a purpose. It does something, okay? His long slimy tongue hung from his grinning toothy mouth as he scampered across the scorching hot beach towards the beckoning water. So now there is progression. He's moving from one place to another. Sliding to a halt, the creature stared into the depths of the azure liquid, intent on learning. Intent on learning what strange substance it was. So I've given him a thought process. He's thinking, he's doing something, okay? In a different story, you might have him speaking now. In fact, let's let him speak, and let's use some of the words we use in our character description. So, let's start from where we were before. Sliding to a halt, the creature stared into the depths of the azure liquid, intent on learning what strange substance it was. His stubby paw reached out to the water's surface, and he touched the strange, glittering salt water. With a broken yelp, Stitch sprung back from the water, landing on all fours, his insect-like tendrils flicking directly up on his back, and he hissed at the bizarre monster. The sea simply continued to splash and lap at the sand with its familiar rhythm. So, he is interacting with the environment. From here I could go on to discuss how he realises he can't defeat the sea and goes to get ice cream. I could describe the ice cream, maybe how he feels when he first tastes it, maybe he loves it. From there, maybe I could go on and he could meet Lilo. And there could be a whole story that happens there with a beginning, a middle, and an end. But do you see how there is progression happening here? There is a story. There is something that happens that is of interest. And that's the biggest difference between all three of these different things. A setting description, as an overview, a setting description just describes the environment. Nothing happens. It's just your five senses and all of your techniques that you know, like adjectives, similes, and metaphors and personification to make it sound interesting. A character description describes a single character. It uses the same techniques, but only describes the character. They don't get to do anything. They can just simply describe how they look, they smell, and how they feel. Use your senses to help. A story combines the two and then gives a plot. It gives a story a beginning, a middle, and an end that can happen. I hope this has helped, and I really look forward to seeing your future writing. If you want, you could have a go at this little project as well. Pick your favourite movie or your favourite video game or book, and try to describe one of the settings, one of the characters, and then make up your own little story that happens in those places. For those of you in Year 6, you already have a setting description that you're working on, and I really hope that this has helped you to complete that project. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!